Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Oh my God, wake up. Good morning.
Good morning.
Wow, much better. Welcome to our lecture in this beautiful day that Mother Nature decided to give us a little bit more warmth. So we need to be thankful for that. Welcome to those who are joining us through the internet as well. So today we're gonna have our lecture done by our friend Joe, who will talk about the loss of loved ones. But as always, before that, our friend Tiago is gonna do the initial reading and prayer for us.
So the reading today is from the book Happy Life by Joana de Angelis and psychography from Givaldo Pereira. Be a real friend. Know how to conduct yourself with discretion and nobility with those who choose your friendship. Discretion is a rare treasure in earthly friendships. It is normally replaced by insensitivity and inseriousness. Everyone likes noble and discreet company, which inspires confidence and leads to tranquility. Listen, see, follow the conversations with nobility, and be faithful to the confidence deposited in you. So let us close our eyes. Let's mentalize Jesus. And let's say, thank you, Lord, for this opportunity of being gathered here to have some reflections, to be in your presence, to receive those blessings that we receive every day, but we don't even realize. Bless our brother Joe, who will be delivering our lecture today, and be with us today and always. So be it.
So good.
I'll start again. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome, October. The year has flown by. As Raquel mentioned, it's a beautiful day outside. Glad that you're here to join us for this lecture. And it's not an easy lecture. It's about the loss of loved ones. I would think that most people here, most people in general, at some point have experienced the loss of someone they loved. Their grandparent, parent, spouse, children, good friend. And grief is such a difficult emotion for us to deal with. Everybody has a different way. Some people deal with it better than others. And when I say better, is that they don't let the grief necessarily drag them down for too long. But regardless, it is a difficult moment when we have to face the fact of our own mortality, as we have to be experiencing the loss of these people that are around us, that we love. It brings back to us our own fears, our own anxiety of dying. It's not uncommon that a lot of people that walk in to our Spiritist center that are not Spiritists were looking for answers. They are grieving often because of a loss of a child, through disease, and unfortunately more common through suicide. And just they don't know how to handle. In part because they miss that person, in part because they have invested so much emotional assets into being with that person. And if it's a child especially, the loss of all of the future things you were hoping to experience with them. And then suddenly it's all gone. Now, unfortunately, I don't have a silver bullet answer that can meet anybody's dealing with these emotions. But what we do here in the Spiritist Center, and through our fraternal counseling, or in general through Spiritism, is to take a step back first, not trying to rationalize it, but to try to understand a few fundamental questions. Number one, why do we die? Why did God create us in such a way that we have to die? The joke is there's only two things certain in life, death and taxes. And but one was created by men, the other one was created by God. Right? So what's the point of dying? What's the point of putting us here in the first place if after a few years, and yes, even people living to 90, 100 years old, that's just a few years, considering the big picture of our existence. Why do we born, go through all of the effort of learning, growing, and then suddenly it's gone? The persons who are next to us, it's not there anymore. The person that we wanted to spend the remaining of our lives with, no longer there. Well, there are possible a few explanations, and this is where Spiritism can help quite a bit. First, in order to understand why we die, we have to start, why are we born? Why are we even here, right? And in our doctrine, in our faith, we are here through God's plan and design to learn, to become better, and to try to reach higher and higher levels of perfection over time. Why exactly he wants us to be perfect, I don't know, but it's a good plan. But it does require time. Much, much more time than a single lifetime can give us. So here we have the reincarnation, right? Because if one life is not enough, if we need to have hundreds, if not thousands of lives to evolve to the level where we can move on to a different stage, then reincarnation is the reason that we are born in the first place. And through many other lectures that we've had, we describe why the things that we learn here in the physical world are things that we don't experience in the spiritual world. The spiritual world is designed for us to reach, to become our final destination over time. But this is kind of going away to school, where we have to learn things, we have to experience things. It's like sending your kids to college, and they have to experience by being by themselves. Make the mistakes, make the lessons, feel, love, hate, hurt, cry. So this is why we're created in the first place, to go through these life experiences, not alone, but in the presence of all of those who are around us. People that some of them we love very much, some of them we like, and others not so much, right? But it's all part of this big equation, this big theater, as you say, that we're here. We're actors in our own lives. The body that we have is given to us on a loaner base. We have it for a very specific time. So that's why we're born. We're born to live, to learn, to make mistakes, to fix mistakes. And in every new life that we have, we get a little bit better. But in order for us to incarnate, what was required in the first place? Well, obviously the spirit. But to put the spirit aside, the spirit is created by God, simple and ignorant. We needed a host, a body. So over many, many years, to us sounds like millions of years, a long time, but remember in the spiritual world, this is not a long time. They developed the biology of this planet. And along with the biology, all of the various aspects, minerals, vegetation, animals. And one of these were tailored to become the host of our spirit. And that's the human being. That's who we are. But by design, this body has a expiry date. We've been pushing the limits over time, living longer and longer, but inherently, every time we reincarnate, we do have an expiry date. And in the explanation that we received from Kardec, this is around the vital fluid that we bring into this body from the spirit that's going to give it animation, it's going to give it life, as we know it. So there's the life of the body, and then there's the life of the spirit. The life of the spirit is eternal. The life of the body is like you're given so much gasoline, fuel, or battery life for this body. And the body will degenerate. We will start very small. We will grow. We will mature. We will kind of become able to reproduce, if we so choose. And then we'll get old. Then we get gray hair. And then we have all the things that come with it. And then eventually, as expected, no surprises here, we will die. In most cases, not all, in most cases, regardless of the fact that when we lose somebody we love, there is grief, there's loss, there's hurt. It seems to be different if that person had lived a full life and died, let's call it at the appropriate age or the expected age, after they lived, a full life of their own. And it used to be different, not too long ago, maybe a couple of centuries, maybe 65, 70 was kind of that age. Then they became 80, 85, and now we're looking into the 90s. So if you tell me that somebody died when they were in the 90s, it's sad. But it's not surprising. But that's their expiry. That they would have had the chance to get all of their affairs in order, to do everything they wanted to do in this life, they were able to do this life, and then they can go, according to a lot of beliefs, to rest. Isn't that what we hear from many other religions, like Christians, in fact, or even Muslims, and most major religions says that after a very difficult life, we will rest eternally next to God. Spiritists, you will die, and then you get start prepared to do it all over again. No rest, right? And the more involved you get, the more work you get. So it's not easy to be a spiritist in that sense. When do we retire? When does the spirit retire? And the fact is, the spirit lives to work, to help other spirits, to do what's right, to do goodness, to give love. So I digressed a bit. So that's one scenario that we seem to, again, nobody wants to see their parents die, it's going to be hurtful. But it's different when it happens unexpectedly, either through diseases, like children with cancer, suicide, sibling commits suicide, we weren't expecting, right? An accident, right? We also have wars where people are being killed for no reason, not involved in a war, and they just seem to be in the middle of two groups trying to kill each other. So there are a lot of scenarios where life is terminated in a surprising way. Right? And those often are the most difficult. This is what we often see here in the center, people dealing with that loss, looking for an explanation, often bringing with them not only the sadness, the hurtful feelings that they have, but also anger. They don't know, they're angry for what they lost, and not knowing where to push that anger to, they're angry to God. They blame God. After all, isn't God responsible for everything that happens? So if my child died, it's because God wanted it, and I can't accept that God wanted to take that child away. So I must hate God for what it has done to me. And again, let's go back to the spiritist view and why it's so important to understand that, first of all, from the deceased person, their spirit has not died. They're still alive. It was also not the first life they had. They had many lives. They had gone through this many, many times before. Everyone at this point in time on this planet has a similar period of evolution. We're very close to each other, even though sometimes we feel that some people are just not there. We are very close in terms of evolutionary gap. So we've had many lives. And that there is a purpose for everything. So God does not necessarily decide that a person is going to die. Because we all have this thing called free will. And to give God responsibility for everything that's happened is to obviously renounce our free will. So you could be walking down the street, some person is drink driving, and they run you over. It was their choice, right, to drink and then to drive. If they had not drunk or driven, they would not be there to cause you harm. It doesn't mean that we don't have kind of an expectation when we reincarnate of how our lives will evolve. Give me an example. If you are a spirit that likes to take risks, adrenaline junkie, right? You come into this life now, this time, where we have so many exciting new ways to kick in all of that adrenaline. Like some people like to jump off cliffs without a parachute, using wings, right? That's what they're looking for. So if a spirit is coming with that intent, with that kind of personality, and now they have the opportunity to practice this to the extreme, and that's what we call them extreme sports, then you're likely going to say, yeah, it might not be this time you jump, but there's a good chance that you're going to end up killing yourself at one point in time. Something, anything can go wrong. The smallest things can go wrong, so statistically, you're asking for it, right? Sometimes you could be lucky enough and give up. Again, that's your free will. It says, I had enough of this. I'll get my adrenaline some other ways. And if the person in the accident, the car, or any other type of accident, right? It's this incidents that you want to be next to each other at that moment, and that happens. Bad choice happens, things occur. I lived in another country, in the country where they don't always favor or are very kind to immigrants or people or expats who live there. And there was a scenario, or a story that there was this local who rear-ends another person, another car. The car was stopped at the traffic light. They didn't see it. Bang! They crashed into the back. Right? But then the local person, national, goes to court and says it's their fault. And I was saying, why is their fault? Why is this accident? You ran into them. And his answer was quite interesting. He said, well, it's their fault because they came here to my country. If they had not come, they would not be stopped at that light, and I wouldn't hit them. See the logic? So you can always rationalize the things that you choose to do. But there are no real coincidences of why we're at a certain place at a certain time. All of the things that surround us, the day-to-day, well, how you got here today, how you going to leave, who's going to leave first, who's going to leave second, who's going to get them on the TTC, who's going to get on their cars, all Uber, who knows? We all make these choices. And all of these billions of little decisions are impacting the possibilities. Any one of them can lead us to our demise. Right? So if someone was involved in an accident, if I had just left 30 seconds later, that person would not be in an accident. It's true. Right? Because that car that crossed the street would have gone by 30 seconds before. So, need to understand that from our concept of our existence in this current life that we have. We've been given a body that has evolved over many, many centuries, thousands, millions of years. We're given one as a loaner for a specific time. There's an expiry date on that body. And we have to try to do the most we can to achieve what was our reincarnatory plan. When we're on the other side, preparing for coming back, we sit down with our mentors and they kind of tell us, we agree on what our lives are going to be. Are we going to be married? Are we going to have a child? Are we going to move to another country? Are we going to be poor, rich? Are we going to be beautiful or not so beautiful? It's all a matter of choices, decisions, plans we make. And then executing your plan, if anybody here is a project manager, it never goes according to the plan. Nothing happens according to the plan. Everything changes and you have to adapt. And that's what we do, we adapt. But the one thing that's difficult about this life, for most of us, or for many of us, is that life is good. Life is beautiful. It's so good to have people who love us, friends, spouses. It's so good to see our children be born, grow, become their own individuals. And we become attached to this. Right? We become attached to them. We say, my child, my son. But we really don't own them, do we? It's not ours to own. Ultimately, each one of us is in their own individual path. In us, and that's the example of the children, us as parents, we're there to love them, to guide them, to help them become good adults. But they are their own individual. They will make their own choices. They have their own plan that you are not aware of. Their own sufferings that are in the plan. So if a child, and I was talking this about just another colleague who is not spiritualist, trying to understand spiritualism, and we're saying, child, why is a child ever given terrible experience or trial or having very difficult disease at such a young age? They obviously do not make any mistakes this year. They do not sin. They do not fail. So why are they doing this? Why is God allowing this? Well, if we go inside that child, understand that spirit, see the old spirit that's inside that child. All the experience and lives that spirit has had before. All the mistakes that they have made, they have to atone for. Maybe it was their decision, this disease was going to be a way to atone them. Somehow. We don't know how that works. It can also be, and this is even tougher for the parents, that they've come here to go through this experience not because of them, but because of you. Because you have to learn that lesson. You have to go through the experience of loss to mature, to evolve. Does anything that I say make anything easier for people? Grieving? Of course not. It's really very little you can say. But over time, if you go back to some of the principles, the basic, there is comfort to be found. And that's the best we can do. The comfort is that first of all, that loved person did not die or cease to exist. The body is gone, has been buried, has been cremated, whatever your practice is. But it was a loner. They are back home, back in the spiritual world, where they came from, where we come from. So in a way, it's good to go back home, right? It's comforting. It also means that they are now having to go through their own experience of dealing with that transition back home, right? If it's an adult, someone who has lived many years, there is reconciliation to be done with regards to what was your plan for this life and what did you actually achieve and learn. What were your mistakes? Were you repeating the same mistakes of previous lives? Are you stuck kind of in a reincarnation loop where you seem to make the same mistakes every time? How can you fix it the next time? So that's the first thing that can comfort us that are left behind. To know that that spirit is in the place where they should be. They're not lost, they're not gone. They're probably thinking of us. And of course, we're thinking of them. Now, it's one of the things that we read a lot in the books, in spiritist books. It's about how do we grieve the impact to the just disincarnated spirit. And that reads in a lot of his books, he described this, including in the Masala, where the spirit needs to go through their transition back to the spiritual world. They need to have a sense of positive energy, of loving energy coming from us, from the physical world that they're so close to. Remember that as we disincarnate, at this stage we are still very close to the material world. We're in the spiritual world, but we're still vibrating with a lot of things. We're attached to material things, we're attached to the people we left behind. So the best thing we can do is have a prayer. Pray for the people who have gone. That prayer is received with so much goodness by the spirits and those who are trying to assist those spirits. I don't mean suggesting that you have to let go, but think of them as having gone to a faraway country that's very good. They have a good life. That they are well. They are working and they are doing what they want to do. This is what we mean by going to a better place. The spiritual world is always a better place than the physical world, which is hard for us to believe. There's so many things that we like in this physical world. There's some of them vices, some of them just experiences that we cherish very closely. What you should not be doing is being angry, asking them to be here with you, to not leave you, to be close to you. Because at that moment, the grief becomes selfish. You're holding back that spirit that needs attention, it needs to be nurtured, it needs to move on. If you're constantly thinking, trying, and wanting them not to have died, or even having negative thoughts of yourself, I will die now because I want to be next to them. Right? Some people do this, especially couples. Now that my loved one has gone, I will go next and then we will be together. Well, warning, it doesn't necessarily happen that way. As I said, we are individuals, spirits. We have our own path. If it's meant to be that you're going to be together, then it is. You will be together. They will always be close by. But if you act and do such a kind of aggression against the natural laws, the divine laws, as to commit suicide, you will be taken on a different path. A path that will take you now new lives to atone for that mistake. Because you still have a purpose. If you have not died, if your partner has died, or you have not, there's still a purpose for you. You have to understand what the purpose is. focus on achieving your evolution. Maybe your next mission is now that you have more time, dedicate to charity. Well, you couldn't do that before because maybe you were taking care of your partner. Go back and do things that can make yourself useful. Or enjoy yourself too. Find a purpose. And this is what is so difficult, is that as we move on and people die and we leave behind, there's fewer and fewer people that we knew that we could be thinking about these things. But there's a way. There's always something that you can pursue. The important thing is don't force yourself to behave in a way. Right? So the grief process is complex. Probably one of the most complex emotions that we have, very next to true love, the deep love. They're connected, right? As it says, loss of a loved one. And we have to understand that each person is going to go through different things. But they do need to eventually get out of that loop that they may find themselves in. Unfortunately, some people come to Spiritism after losing something. They say, I just lost my father, my mother. Can I speak to them? And your mediums, can you guys find a way to let me send a message to them or get a message from them? Can they talk to me? Right? And a lot of the Hollywood movies don't help because they show all these things, right? It's the seances, the medium, the whole kind of show around receiving spirits' voices and so forth. Yeah, that's also very limited. That could happen. And it's not because you want it, it's because the spirits are enabling it. Chico Xavier was the best example of that kind of communication. There wasn't anybody who would go there and ask for communication that would be able to see him because it was very limited. But remember, you can talk to them. Talk to them in your prayer. Try to remember the good things that happen. Talk to them about maybe the experiences they're having there. Are they doing well? Right? You can say that you miss them, that's normal. Right? But that life continues. Right? There is a flow to life that has been given to us as a divine present. We shouldn't curse it. We shouldn't be angry with it. Right? We often do this even in our lives, right? Somebody gives you kind of a charity or some favor, and you feel grateful. And then if the person keeps giving you more and more of that, eventually you become dependent on that. You start to demand that they continue to do that charity to you. It's no longer optional for them. You become entitled to that. It happens with our lives as well, with the people we love. We get so much back. We have so much connection. We have so many benefits. We enjoy it. We live for it. So we begin to own it. We begin to own and demand entitlement. That should not be taken away from us, except when I'm okay, when I'm ready. So guess what? You'll never be ready. Obviously, as I said, the younger the deceased, the more difficult it is for people to accept. Siblings, I know many cases of friends where siblings take their lives. In some cases, was not surprised because that person has been depressed for a long time. All this was completely out of the room. There's great sense of guilt that's left behind. Maybe I could have avoided this somehow. So unless you're the person who incited that other spirit to kill themselves, it is their choice. We have to go back to understanding that what we see here in terms of a body is not representative of the spirit itself. Who have we been before? What lives have we had? Like the Hollywood movies of aliens who take over the bodies. They look for beautiful woman, beautiful man, handsome man, and then suddenly a big ET comes out of that body. Our spirit is a little bit like that because there's so many mysteries, so many not so good memories of what we have done in the past. We are blessed to forget those things. That allows us to continue our evolution and our progress. Nobody here is a first-timer spirit. Nobody on this stage. So imagine that each one of us, in some ways, we do have to live for the moment, right? Because we don't know when it's going to be taken away. And then we have to move on to something else. That's why there's no better time to be loving and charitable than today. Because you don't know what tomorrow will bring to you. So if you're experiencing grief, or will experience grief in the future, let your emotions evolve. But always remind yourself that that person is not gone. That's the first real faith that we need to have. It's really faith. If we really believe that that person is not gone, that that spirit has moved on to another place, that will bring your anxiety down. Now, you still might be angry that, yeah, they're still existing, but they left. No, it's not their fault. It has happened sometime. So now you have to focus on your goals. What did that person mean to you? Reflect on what they gave and what you gave them. Think of how you can continue those experiences, maybe with different people, in different circumstances. If you're close to somebody who has lost a friend, talk to them, explain to them that spirit, that person is in a better place, that they're being taken care of, that this is the natural progression. It's inevitable, right? The timing, we don't know. And I don't think we would like to know. Right? And we see these, again, we talk a lot about movies because they reflect a lot of our anxieties. Right? So would it be possible, what would it be like if you knew that day you were going to die? Would you be different? Why would you be different? If you know you're going to die in, I don't know, 20 years, would you be different what you do tomorrow? Or if you know you're going to die in 6 months, would you do things differently? Right? I don't think I want to know. You know, because it's that mystery that allows us to make less selfish decisions about ourselves. Because if I knew I was going to die 24 hours later, I would very likely make some very selfish decisions. What do I want to do? Right? Some of them, you see, one of them want to get my affairs ready for the people I love. But yeah, most people would tend to be more selfish. And maybe sometimes in the worst aspects of their personalities. They don't want to go to prison. So. But in any case, that mystery is, again, to me, a blessing. Not any different than anyone. Losses are losses, people. And we have to deal with them. But know that here in the house, we have our support, our shoulder, or attention, we listen. We can remind you of these things that we keep telling you or kind of explaining every week in these lectures. That things may feel really, really bad, but they may not be as bad as you think. Then hope that is the little kind of push that you need to start getting out of that sort of rut, that hole that you're digging for yourself. We see many cases of parents who one parent and then forget about the other. They lose a child and they're grieving so much that they forget about the other children in their life. Maybe there was a favorite who died. And that's a good example, right? A family, let's say parents that have 2 or 3 children, and it happens a lot in different cultures. The eldest one, if it's a man, all of the expectations, all of the hopes of the parents maybe are focused on the success of that person. They invest more in that child. They love that child more. And then that child goes away. Some of them can't recover. They forget the other children they might have. Not they forget, but they let their grief basically distance themselves from the mission that they have with the other children. So this is a very simple and clear example of needing to change priorities. But even if you're not dealing about children, talking about friends, parents, or whatever, there's always something else that you should be doing. Give yourself time to heal, to absorb and process the loss. But don't forget, most importantly, that we have still a mission to accomplish. Remember, try to remember what that mission is. And how can you go back to executing it, even with that loss you just suffered. And most of all, have faith in God. All of these things that happen to us ultimately build our character, build our spirit, leads us to experiences, allow us to redeem things that we might have done in the past. We may not see it, we may not understand it, but this is where the faith comes in. I'm not meaning blind acceptance and ignoring. No. Take a deep breath, understand, go through the suffering, but know that there's a purpose. It's not meaningless. It's not revenge of God against you. God loves us unconditionally. He is so merciful. And each one of these things that happen in our lives, even as painful as the loss of a loved one, will be for our eventual. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Do we have any comments or questions?
Deep breath.
Let's reflect a bit.
I do have a thought. First of all, I like your concept of them moving to a different country, a better country. That's a very good analogy, actually. In my opinion. Second is for people who have already passed through that, once, maybe twice, maybe more. I'm getting older, so it's like I don't see too much more family above me. You start better understanding how to live your life, right? So how you should take care of the others behind you or above you still, right? Because you see that this will come eventually, so you have to take the best of that period you're still here. And the third thing is like that came to my mind when you were talking was when this happened, you think how the person who just passed away, how this person lived and their beliefs. So in my case recently, the person was very close to heart. So it was very natural to me to understand that that person is going to a better place, not because she believe or not believe, but the way that she lives her life. She's a good person, helped, etc. But more than that was easier for her to move to the next stage. That's how I felt. This helped me quite a lot.
That's important. Thank you for sharing. I forgot to mention, Spirits Books, chapter 3 and 4, good reading on this subject, talks about the reason that we exist as spirits or reincarnation in multiple lives we live, and the process by which we get this.
I have a question.
Yes.
It's, so when we lose somebody, we are in the process of grief. We tend, and especially experiences, we tend to put the lost ones in our prayers, and we keep them like for a while in our prayers, like every time, like asking for that person. But at some point, it just like, at least for me, my experience was like at some point you get something that gets automatic, like you just go with the flow, like it keeps thinking of the person, but it doesn't come as often. Is that good from that, or should you like have a point where you should like stop, or?
I think it's very beautiful, actually, because it's a good indication that if your spirit is connected to the person who left you, your loved one, and you were doing the good type of prayers, the ones wishing them well, wishing them recovery, whatever, and suddenly they seem to be more and more distant because they're being taken care of and they're moving on. So they are already gone to the next space. They moved to another country that doesn't have the same telephone system now. And maybe they have reincarnated, right? We don't know. But I think it's natural. And the fact that you're thinking about them, I know, just remember them. Every little remembrance is a good energy that we send out to them, wherever they may be. So don't feel guilty that you don't, keep praying for your grandparent or for your friend, 10 years after they died. You never forget them, do you? There's always things that come in your life that brings that into focus. And I think if you're in a good place, is that these things that you remember are the good things. There's always bad things and good things you can remember about anybody, right? But if something that comes up and it was something that was unique for that person or that you liked very much, that they used to do and you laughed at the time, these are the best memories you can have. And these are the ones that immediately you will send a connection to that person, wherever they can be.
Perfect. All right, thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone who joined us online. We will get ready for the classes, and hope you guys have a lovely week.